I believe he would like to resume personal diplomacy with Kim Jong Un. The North Korean troops in Ukraine really are a tragedy because they're being killed at a pretty high rate. Simply an initiative by the United States to try to engage North Korea directly.
Yeah, let's dive into our questions. So, President Trump, in the Fox News interview, he said Kim Jong Un is very smart and also he's willing to meet Kim Jong Un again.
He happens to be a smart guy. Kim Jong Un is a smart guy.
You'll reach out to him again.
I will.
Do you believe Kim Jong Un is equally open to talk with United States?
I can't speak for President Trump, but I believe he would like to resume personal diplomacy with Kim Jong Un. He's made some statements to that effect.
How's Kim Jong Un doing?
To pull this off, the envoy for special missions, Richard Grenell, will be engaged in negotiations with the North Korean government. And I think that'll help us figure out whether these talks are possible. Now, we know the North Korean government said things last year that they were not willing to resume negotiations if Trump was elected. I think that we'll see after, productive diplomacy where the U.S. shows a willingness to talk. We're hoping that the North Koreans will reciprocate. I suspect there may be some strings attached to a meeting between Trump and Kim.
Do you think it's a leverage tactics, North Korea saying, we are no longer interested in talk with United States, whichever government will elect? So do you think that it's a leverage tactics?
It could be a negotiating tactic. It could reflect how relations really deteriorated over the last few years. But look, we have a new U.S. government. Trump is taking a whole new approach to global security. And I think that really creates opportunities for North Korea to lower tensions and to build a more cooperative relationship with the U.S. and other nations in the region.
There have been the report, including Ukraine government and New York Times, that North Korea is preparing sending the additional troops to Russia to fight against Ukraine. And I know President Trump is advocating a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia.
I think they have a lot of power over Russia, so I think Russia should want to make a deal. Maybe they want to make a deal.
Do you think North Korea's action could be used as also leverage, and also how might this impact U.S. engagement with North Korea?
Well, I think the North Korean troops in Ukraine really are a tragedy because they're being killed at a pretty high rate. I think the Russians are taking advantage of North Korea, and I hope that North Korea will reconsider the whole idea of sending their young soldiers to this distant land where they basically, as we say in English, North Korea doesn't have a dog in this fight. I don't know how that will translate into Korean, but it's really a tragedy. I think that the U.S. will make a big issue out of this in the talks with Russia and in any talks we have with North Korea.
Both President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth mentioned North Korea as nuclear power.
North Korea turned out to be good. I was very friendly with him. He liked me. I liked him. Now he is a nuclear power.
Do you think it suggests that shift U.S. policy as complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization (CVID) to arms control and coexistence with nuclear North Korea?
I believe the U.S. will stick to the CVID policy. Again, I'm not speaking for President Trump. And North Korea is not a nuclear power as defined by the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty.
North Korea is declared its own main enemy of South Korea, and also they state that they're no longer interested in reunification with South Korea. Then if North Korea were to bypass South Korea and engage directly with United States, how might the Donald Trump administration respond?
Well, North Korea directly engaged in negotiations with the United States at the Singapore summit and at the Vietnam summit. So there's a precedent for these talks. And it's not that South Korea is being left out. It was simply an initiative by the United States to try to engage North Korea directly. Now, I've heard these statements by Kim Jong Un and other North Korean leaders about declaring South Korean enemy and that there's no interest in negotiations anymore. Those statements took place almost 2 years ago now. So I think there's time for North Korea to revisit them because we have a different international situation
Mhm.
with the election of Donald Trump, and I think it opens a lot of doors for possibly resolving this conflict.
But right now, at the same time, in the South Korea, there's a political turmoil. So, uh, is it possible to South Korea gonna be left out the U.S. North Korea policy when implemented?
The political turmoil in South Korea is a problem for regional and international security. America needs a strong and stable South Korea. And I think I heard President Trump saying something like, I'd like to talk to President Yoon if only they would stop impeaching him. Look, we've had political problems in our country, so maybe I shouldn't be talking about this. I just think it's crucial that this situation resolve itself because, there are huge security threats to South Korea right now from China and from North Korea. And the more unstable South Korea appears, the more tempted these nations will be to exploit that instability.
How important is the U.S. military posture, including the joint drill with RFA? I remember President Trump last time he's scaling back these drills as a gesture of the goodwill toward North Korea.
Well, that was very controversial during the Trump administration. Experts in the U.S. and in South Korea were angry that Trump wanted to suspend these joint drills. But I pointed out when people said that these drills also were suspended after the agreed framework was struck in the 1990s. The idea was to suspend these talks, these drills, while there's a possibility of a negotiated settlement, because we know how much North Korean leaders have expressed their anger and hatred of these joint drills. I think they're important to conduct, but if there is some sign that North Korea will engage in good faith negotiations, I don't see any harm in suspending them during those talks. A lot of my colleagues don't agree with me on that, but I will add that there is historical precedent for doing this.
And also, President Trump mentioned about Kim Jong Un a lot, in a week. So do you think that's the signal or that's the sign for it's going to be different from the Biden administration?
I think so. And I'll also remind you that Trump made many references to North Korea in his first speech to the UN General Assembly.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself.
In his national security strategy. And if you compare those documents with those in the Biden administration, there's almost nothing about North Korea in the Biden documents, maybe one or two sentences. It simply was not a priority. I think it was a conflict that the Biden administration thought would simply go away or they weren't interested in dealing with. And I think that's something that made the situation get worse.
Do you have any message to North Korea government?
I'm very glad to have this opportunity to speak to the people of North Korea. I hope the North Korean government will watch this because I think a brighter future is ahead of us if both sides will take advantage of Trump's election.